Now, when it comes to Rainbow Six Siege, there is a large roster of operators. Many people have their preferences, and everyone is going to have their favorites compared to someone else. But two operators for me who I just never see myself playing and have no desire to is Sledge and Thorn. Sledge is an operator who has fallen from grace a little bit after being in the game since launch and having alternative operators who I think simply does his job better. Thorn, on the other hand, I just think has been underwhelming ever since her release as an operator, and in the category of traps, there is always a better alternative. And when I made my most recent mailbox video where we covered the concept of a sledge buff which I presented, I started to think more about that concept I created and started to expand more off of it, adding a lot more depth to what could be a very good rework for Sledge, and it even got me thinking this could be great on Thorn as well. Now, before we get into this, I just want to say, if you enjoy this video, be sure to hit that like button, and if you haven't already, hit the sub button since we're almost at 200k. Now let's get into these rework concepts. So firstly, I'm going to cover something which I'm going to talk about in both of these concepts for Sledge and Thorn, and that is a somewhat new mechanic that was implemented into Rainbow Six Siege alongside the changes to Frost. If you don't know, last year Ubisoft updated Frost to where people can now pull themselves out of their Frost mats by themselves. However, they have this new effect where their character limps, they cannot sprint for a decent period of time, as well as this, they make verbal noise in pain, giving away your sound position, and you also leave bloody footprint trails showing the enemy where you went. And of course, all of this is on top of losing a large majority of your health. Now, this has been a part of Frost for a good while now. I think a lot of people overreacted about this, and I think it's actually pretty fine, and I think it's a really cool mechanic which added more depth to her gadget, even though it did nerf her a tiny bit. But I actually think this mechanic is very cool, and I think there is a way where we could implement this with both Sledge and Thorn. So hear me out. Let's begin with Sledge. In the most recent mailbox video, I proposed the idea that when Sledge starts breaching a floor, due to the shrapnel being propelled to the other side, as well as Sledge coming in contact with metal beams, the debris that's falling as well as this noise would cause a small concussion effect to people who are underneath these holes. This would set him apart from Buck and Ram without changing too much and still keeping all three of them very relevant, although different. But I posted that video and everything. A lot of people really liked my concept. I got a lot of praise for that, which thank you. I thought it was a good idea too. But then I got thinking about it and I was like, well, if we're going to be propelling this much debris to the floor below us and someone's going to be standing there, then why not make it that when they get hit with this debris, that they actually get the same effect you get that when you pull yourself out of a frost mat, where this debris will cause some wounds to your body. Of course, I know that isn't crazy realistic with the gear they're wearing, but it's a video game. But if you are on the receiving end of Sledge making vertical soft breaches or horizontal soft breaches as well, then not only will it sort of give you a small light concussion effect, but it will then also prevent you from running for a small period of time. I don't think it should be as long as Frost. You can probably do half the amount of time as Frost. But if you're going for a site execute, for example, and you know that someone is in the corner of the room, you send a Sledge upstairs, he hits his sledgehammer above, the debris will hit the person below, giving them a small concussion, preventing them from sprinting, and then your team go for a horizontal site execute. That right there sets Sledge apart from Buck and Ram, giving him an entirely new role he can do while still being that vertical sledgehammer operator, still doing everything his gadget has always done and intended to do. But now we are using the environment in ways that Buck and Ram cannot. Buck has the advantage of having range with his shotgun, and as well as this, it's lethal. If someone is below the holes you're shooting, those shotgun pellets are also going to hit them. Ram has the safety of throwing her boogie, can do it from the outside, and it opens up a lot of the floor. And with this change for Sledge, he then has this ability to affect players who are below the site he is attacking, as well as this, like I'm saying, if they're on the other side of a wall as well and he hits that wall, the same effect would apply. It isn't just vertical, but but this would allow Sledge to stand out amongst these operators. If you have any more ideas what you could do with this, then be sure to comment them, but I definitely think this would be a very good change for Sledge, because that just opens up the ballpark, adds a lot more strategy, and you can do a lot of really fun site executes and kills by bringing a Sledge to slow down operators. I personally think this is a really good idea, and I'm happy to discuss this further. I really think it's a good one. So you can probably see how this is going to go when we talk about Thorn as well. So the issue with Thorn to me is that other operators do her job better. I think Legion especially just trumps her completely. I've always said I think they overtuned Legion too much. A lot of the buffs that went to Legion should have actually went to Thorn instead, and he just overshadows her completely, as does Capcan and Lucy and all these other trap operators. There's not really ever a point to bring a Thorn. The only thing she is really good at is area displacement, but due to the fact you can destroy her Razor Bloom just by shooting it even when it's detonating anyway, that takes away a lot of the strong aspect of what that could be. I like to place Razor Blooms on default plant spots because if you're in the closing moments of the round, they go for a plant in a default location, that Razor Bloom is going to push them away. But a lot of you probably already know that doesn't really happen that much. Legion brings a lot more utility than Thorn does, and his goo mines can also stop a plant, because if they stand on a goo mine, the game prioritizes pulling that out rather than planting. So I just think there's a lot of issues with Thorn. So I think if we look at her and maybe reduce the damage but increase maybe the radius and the detonation time, that could be quite a good step in the right direction, because if we do that, we can then also add this limping effect which you get from frost mats. This would still be a very valuable trap. It doesn't necessarily one-hit kill you, but then it allows any defender who is there to act off of the fact that this attacker can no longer run away, and as well as this, they're going to have bloody footprints in which they could follow. This would allow Thorn to be a lot more flexible than she currently is, and I don't know, I just think it's a bit more interesting causing a faster reaction to an enemy and then still allowing them to live but causing them to have to limp for the next 15 seconds, for example, than it is just one hit killing them. Because, I mean, as cool as it is that Thorn's Razor Blooms can one-hit kill, when was the last time you've seen it happen on a common basis? Maybe if you're in, like, bottom-tier ranks, it might happen a lot because people don't drone, and you can kill people with sledgehammers in that rank. But in a genuine aspect, I just don't think that Thorn performs at all, and I just don't think she had any impact on the game, sadly, which is sad because I think her gadget is quite cool. So maybe if you gave her, like, 4 Razor Blooms, reduced the damage, made it detonate faster, and had this effect, it would cause a lot more kills to come for it, cause Thorn to be a lot more useful. And again, this is going to benefit people who plan ahead, drone ahead. You still have Twitch counter, you'll still have the Brava counter and stuff. If anything, Brava countering Thorn with this change would also cause a lot of that stuff to happen to the defending team as well. So I think it would just add more depth to Thorn's gadget, the same way that pulling yourself out of a frost mat added more depth to Frost. To me, the limping mechanic is just a really cool thing. I love when Ubisoft implement new mechanics into the game and you get to see how it goes to different operators. One of the ones that makes me think of it is when the Outbreak event was actually made, you had the big Thrasher in that, and when he hit you, it would knock you back. That gameplay mechanic was then used for Nomad. That gameplay mechanic was then used for Oryx, and now that gameplay mechanic has been used for the Shield rework. So I definitely think a suppression of speed mechanic as well as a bleeding mechanic definitely has a place in Rainbow Six Siege. I think the Frost rework showed that even though that was technically a nerf to Frost, but not a crazy one, she's still an amazing operator, and it leads to some really cool moments when people do decide to pull themselves out of Frost mats. But of course, this is just my concept and opinion. You may disagree, you may agree. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below if there's anything you want to add onto these as well. I would definitely love to play a version of Sledge like this though. You could lead to so many cool moments. You could just counter so many operators. If there's a mirror playing below, you hit it, she can't run, your team goes for a push or like a shield, for example. You know, it's going to be the absolute best synergy with like shield operators. It'd be insane. But yeah, as I can currently think, that's all I've got to say. Maybe I'll lay in bed later and more will come to my mind and I'll have to make a revised video one day. But for right now, I definitely think these would be 2 really cool buffs. And like I was saying, I definitely want the one for Sledge at least to happen. So be sure to let me know your thoughts in the comment section below. Drop a like on this video if you did enjoy. Subscribe if you're new. I shall catch you later. I love you all. Stay safe. Peace.